What's good, you guys? It's Mai. Welcome back to my channel. I want to say excuse any background noise you hear. I have my baby girl over here in the mama room. I tried to film this video like 3 or 4 times, but she made it real clear that she needs to be in it, like she wants to be a part of it. Anyway, in today's video I want to talk to you guys all about my labor and delivery story. It was really emotional for me, the entire process. Like it was crazy. So anyway, to start off, Christmas Day, 4 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, on Christmas Day, I was having like these light cramps, sort of like they are kind of like menstrual cramps, like a lot of women that I know describe them as like menstrual cramps, and they were really light. They weren't painful, so I didn't think much of them. But once I realized they were getting more regular, I started timing them. I was using a couple different apps, and all of them had the contraction tracker on them. So I was using one of those apps to track my contractions. So I was having really like extremely mild contractions. It was just like a tightening of my stomach. So I was timing them, and they were 8 to 10 minutes apart for about an hour or so, right? So around, I want to say maybe 5:45, almost, well, around 5:30, almost 6, I got up to use the restroom. Well, I was going downstairs to get me something to eat because I was hungry, but I ended up going to the bathroom. You know, being 9 months pregnant, you gotta pee all the damn time. So I went into the bathroom to pee, and I noticed like I was leaking this fluid, and I knew at first I thought like maybe I'm peeing on myself, but no. After I finished, you know, it's a different feeling. If you've had a baby, or if you felt your water break before, you know the feeling. You know, it don't feel like you peed on yourself. It's a totally different sensation. So I felt like this fluid coming out of me, right? So I called my husband into the bathroom, and I'm like, I think I'm leaking. To make sure that it wasn't pee and that I wasn't tripping, I, leaned forward a little bit and put my hand behind me, because where you pee and where the baby come out is two separate situations. Anyway, so fast forward, around 6 a.m. I realized that my water had broken and I was leaking slowly. It wasn't like a gush of fluid. Mind you, I lost my mucus plug came out, I want to say on either December 19th or December 20th, right? So a whole week prior to me actually going into labor. Yeah, around 6 o'clock, my husband and I decided to go to the hospital. I had already had my bags packed, well, our bags packed, and we knew, which hospital we were going to and everything. We had everything pretty much set up. Our car seat was in the car. We were good. So we decided to go to the hospital. The hospital that we went to was about a 30-minute drive from where we live. So we got in the car and we're on our way to the hospital. On our way there, I'm still having like mild contractions. They weren't bad at all. They were still just like tensing up of my stomach. They were still about 8 to 10 minutes apart. They were one was even actually, I want to say 6 or 7 minutes apart, but they weren't strong at all. Like they didn't hurt me. They were just like mild cramps again. So the whole way to the hospital, we're just talking. I'm listening to music. I'm still like actively leaking fluid at this point. So once we get to the hospital, we actually go to the emergency room. We go in and I, sign in and I explain, what's going on. I'm standing there. I'm wearing leggings and a sweatshirt, right? A big hoodie. And I literally feel just like there's water trickling down my leg. We tell her what's going on, whatever. She calls somebody and they bring out a wheelchair for me. They wheel me up to the labor and delivery ward, and that's where we sit for a good 15-20 minutes. Then we end up talking to a nurse, and I explain to her what's going on, and I tell her that I think I'm leaking fluid. So they do amniocentesis, right? They take the little cotton Q-tip swab thing and they swab the area where you believe to, they swab what you believe to be your amniotic fluid. If the tip of the Q-tip turns blue, then it's a positive test for amniotic fluid. But if it's not, then you're not leaking or whatever. So they did that test, I want to say maybe 2 or 3 times, and it still wasn't turning completely blue. It was just, nothing was happening, right? I was still having contractions, but they weren't fast, and they weren't painful, and they weren't really progressing. So they were actually getting ready to send us home. Now this is around, I want to say this is around maybe 10. We had already been there. After the test came back negative, the nurse suggested that I do some laps around this floor, the maternity ward. So I did maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 laps around the maternity ward, just walking. And so after a couple laps around the maternity ward, there was still nothing really happening. It was the contraction. To me, they almost felt like they stopped, but I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want them to send me home. Like, that was my biggest issue. Like, before we even left home, I was like, maybe I should stay home for a little while. You know, I don't want to go there and then have them send me home. They hooked me up to the monitors and everything, and then the nurse comes back in and she's like, okay, well, you know, we're not seeing any progression. We're thinking we're gonna send you home and you can labor at home and then you can come back in a couple hours. Yeah, after a couple laps, I just, you know, they hooked me up to the monitors. They were checking her heart rate and my heart rate and my blood pressure and everything. I was fine. So about an hour later, a doctor comes in. She's a very nice lady. At first, I was kind of like, you know, I wasn't feeling her because of the way she was talking to me. It was almost as if she wasn't giving me any options. She's like, okay, well, you have to do this now or this is gonna happen, you know. But she was, you know, she knows best. She was telling me what was the best thing for me to do for me and my baby, right? So I was frustrated, and I was gonna get up to use the restroom. As soon as I sat up a little bit, I felt like this huge gush of just fluid. The same thing I was feeling before. I know I'm not crazy. I know I wasn't peeing on myself, so asked the nurse if she could test it one more time. So there was a huge, just like a gush of fluid sitting on my leg because I was kind of laying on my side. She again took 2 of the swabs this time and swabbed the little area, and it immediately turned blue. So she's looking at it, she's like, oh, okay, well, give me 1 second, I'll be right back. She ran out, I guess she went and talked to the doctor or whatever. Then the doctor comes in and she gives me my options. She's like, okay, well, you are actively leaking amniotic fluid. At this point, they had already checked my cervix and everything. I was still 1.5 centimeters dilated as I was from like a week, you know, my previous OB appointment, which was like a week before this. She told me I was still 1.5 centimeters dilated. There was no progression really. And she's like, okay, well, being that you're leaking amniotic fluid, that we don't want that to go on for too long. It could cause infection. You know, you could potentially have a dry birth, you know, so they wanted to put me on Pitocin. Well, I was going into this entire like laboring process and giving birth to a baby. Like, I didn't want any medication. I didn't want any help really. I wanted to be able to do it my way, let my body do what it was supposed to do on its own without anybody's help. That whole idea had to go out the window when they told me that I had to be put on Pitocin. I did cry. I cried for a couple minutes because I felt, I don't know, I was really discouraged. I'm like, man, like, I don't want to have to do this. I don't want to, you know, I just want it to go naturally. And then in my head, I was like, I should have just stayed home. But anyway, I'm glad that I didn't. So they put me on Pitocin. They came in, and the lady that was putting my IV in, I don't know what she did. You know, the IV, they're supposed to put it in your hand, or you can have them put it in your wrist. They tried it in this hand. The first lady that did it, she completely blew out my vein. I still have the scar, and it was just gone. Like, it was, I just felt like a puff, and it was done. I don't know, maybe she didn't do it right. And if you can see, like, I have pretty decent veins. Like, you can see my veins from all the way up to my arm. Like, they're pretty prominent. So I'm like, how did she, you know, how she missed that? Anyway, then another lady, she sent in another nurse, and the other nurse actually got it. She put it in this wrist, and I've been having like this issue with my thumb since then. Like, anyway, after they put in the IV, they were giving me saline and Pitocin. They were slowly like up in the Pitocin throughout the hours. So at first I wasn't feeling anything. I didn't really start to feel anything until, I want to say around 2:30, maybe 3 p.m. on Christmas Day. The contractions, they were still really mild, but they were definitely, like, I could definitely tell when I was feeling them. So I had tried to sit on the nursing ball, I had tried to sit on the birthing ball a couple times, but I was hooked up to all of these wires and things. That's another thing that I really didn't want. I didn't want to be hooked up to anything. You know, I know they have to do the IV, but that's, you know, one little thing that's easy to maneuver. But being that I was hooked up to so much, it was hard for me to move around and do what I really wanted to do. I went from walking around the room to actually sitting still. I was sitting in a chair at one point. I was sitting looking out the window, and I was feeling like these crazy contractions, right? So they weren't, I want to say maybe like a 4 out of 10. I was progressively feeling the contractions. They were coming close together, but they weren't getting any more intense. So about every half an hour, well, every 15 minutes to a half an hour or so, the nurse would come in and she would up the numbers or whatever to the Pitocin. So I'm just laboring in the room, and it was okay. I was falling asleep. I was really, really tired. Mind you, I had been up from that whole day. I don't think I didn't sleep much at all. I was tired, so I was sleeping in between contractions. Not like full-blown sleeping, but kind of like dozing off and falling asleep. I was back and forth to the bathroom. I had to pee every couple of minutes just because of the solution that they were giving me in the IV, and I was just really cold, so she brought me some warm blankets and stuff like that, and you know, we're just sitting in the room. I just stayed like 5:30-ish, maybe, no, 5 o'clock, 5:30. I started the contraction. They were getting really, really bad. Like, they were really getting to me. It was to a point where I couldn't like talk through them. I was just kind of like humming and moaning through it, and I just wanted to sit still. The worst possible thing that they made me do, like, they made me lay on my back. You know, every couple hours they come in and check my cervix and make sure that everything's progressing properly. Around like 5 o'clock, they checked me again, and I was close to, I want to say I was at least 7 centimeters. And she's like, okay, you know, you're progressing pretty well. Let's, you know, let's just keep it moving. And again, they upped the Pitocin. So I think I was at what, 12, maybe 13 at this point, because I remember by the end of it I was at 16. I was around 7 centimeters, and I was just kind of like moaning through them and dealing with them really, and not trying to think. I remember the lights were off and it was quiet. My husband was watching a basketball game on TV. Like, I didn't want to be touched, I didn't want to be talked to. I just kind of wanted to lay there and let it happen. So a couple hours go by. This is around maybe 6:30. Like, again, I'm feeling them like really, really bad. At this point I was laying facing the wall behind the hospital bed. They were getting so bad to the point where I didn't want to sit. I didn't want to sit on my butt. I didn't want to stand up. I didn't want to squat. I don't know. That was just the best thing that worked for me. I was facing the back wall. I had the bed pulled all the way up, kind of like in a sitting position, and I was just leaning over the back of the bed. And that's how I was dealing with my contractions. I remember after a couple hours of being like that, I had to pee. I got up to go to the bathroom, and every time I had to get up to go to the bathroom, we had to wait for the nurse and have her come and unhook me, and I had to bring this huge pole, you know, the IV pole, into the bathroom with me, and it was just a big process, and I just wanted to go pee. Peeing was a hassle in the hospital, and I hated it. So I remember I was in the bathroom, and I got like a really, really bad contraction as I was peeing, and I could not move. Like, I completely froze, and I kind of wanted to stand up, so my body would kind of like make me stand up, but then I kind of want to sit down, because it was, I don't know, it was horrible. It was a horrible feeling. It was the worst thing ever. But now that I'm thinking about it, thinking back on it, it's like, it wasn't that bad. I could do it again. After that episode in the bathroom, I was just crying. I was over it. I was like, I want to, you know, get this over with. I wanted to ask for an epidural. I don't remember if I actually said the word epidural, but I remember I kept saying, like, I don't want to do this anymore. Is it over yet? You know, can we get it over with? Whatever, whatever. When I finally get back to the bed, I'm feeling like this heavy, like, pressure. It's still a contraction, but it's like a pressure on my, I want to say where my pelvis is, and it was really, really heavy. So I'm laying on my side at this point, and I kept feeling like my body pushing something out. So I tell the nurse and I tell my husband, like, I'm pushing. I'm not pushing me. I'm not making myself push, but my body is pushing the baby out. I feel myself pushing, and I'm telling her, and she's like, oh my God, you know, she kind of freaks out, and it makes me mad, because I'm like, this is what's supposed to be happening, you know, like, why are you freaking out? She's like, okay, we need you to lay on your back so we can check you out. Again, I hated laying on my back. Like, it was the most painful thing ever. It was really uncomfortable for me. So I had to lay on my back for a good maybe 5-6 minutes. It wasn't that long, but it was the longest 5 to 6 minutes of my life. I laid on my back for a couple minutes, and she checked my cervix. She's like, okay, you're about 8.5, 9 centimeters dilated. She's like, don't push until the doctor comes. And I'm like, I'm not pushing. My body's doing it. I don't even know how to. I've never had a baby before. I haven't had to push a baby out. I don't know what it feels like to push. Yeah, I'm like, I don't know how to push, you know. I feel like I'm pushing something out. So she's like, don't push, you know, don't push until the doctor comes. And I'm still constantly, like, as every contraction comes, I feel my body is pushing something out. The doctor finally gets in there, you know, they're setting everything up, and I've never seen anybody move so fast. The bed that I was laying on, I had no idea, it actually like split in half. They took the bottom half of the bed out. They made me, you know, kind of sit up. They put my legs in the stirrups, and like I just look down and I see the floor. I don't know how, but the bed was gone. They took everything, you know, they set everything up. They got all their supplies on the side. They turned on this huge light above me. There are 2 nurses on each side, well, a nurse on each side of me, and then the doctor down there. I don't know who else was in the room. I wasn't really paying attention, but my husband was off to the side with the camera. So I'm just I'm still feeling the contractions as my legs are up in the stirrups. They're telling me with every contraction I need to push. So at this point I'm actually trying to push now. At this point it's about 6:30 and they're telling me, okay, let's push. So with every contraction I'm pushing, but I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere. It just hurts really bad. I don't want to do it, but they're telling me, you know, I just gotta get her out. The more I push, the faster it'll be over, the faster I'll get to meet my baby. So I'm pushing, you know, every contraction, and it's excruciating. Like, I hated it. It was just horrible. Like, I never felt anything like that before. And then in my head, the whole time I'm just sitting there with my hands in my head, like, there's a baby coming out of me. There's a baby coming out of me. Like, what do I do? This is it. You know, this is what this is the moment of truth. Like, I'm about to have a baby. So around like 6:45, 6:50, I actually started feeling, you know, her coming down, like through the birth canal, I guess is what it's called now. I felt the pressure of her coming down. She wasn't actually crowning just yet, but I felt it. So I was pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. I was getting tired. I didn't want to push anymore. But when she finally, you know, started crowning, she was out for, I want to say, a minute and a half. Just her hair, the top of her head. The doctor asked me, she's like, do you want to feel her hair? I'm like, no, I don't want to feel anything. I just want to get this over with. The very last push, I felt like I kept asking them to like pull her out. Can you pull her out?
There you go, Dad. Congratulations. She's gorgeous. Congratulations, you did it.
Her weight is 6 pounds, 6 ounces, 19 and a half inches long. The circumference of her head was 13 and a half centimeters. And her was just the bestest thing ever, huh? Look at that double chin. Do that again. Look at that double chin. Say hi. I wanted to thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up if you liked it and subscribe to see more videos like this. Alright guys, I will catch you in my next one. Bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye-bye. Say bye. There she know.